The best piece of advice in business is this. If you want to achieve something big, like growing your MSP, the easiest way to do that is to ask someone who's already done it. What would you ask them? Would you ask them what they did, what worked the best, and what was a waste of time? Well, you're in luck, because my special guest right now has been growing MSPs their entire life. So just for you, here comes some ideas waiting for you to use.
Hi, I'm Nicola Moss. I'm the owner of the Fractional Marketeer, and I've been running this business for the last few months, having had a 20-year sort of exciting career marketing within some of the smallest and largest of MSPs.
That's brilliant. And thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, Nicola. Obviously, you've got this exciting new business going forward where I know you're already working with some MSPs and you have some gaps, some vacancies to work with others. Let's see if we can fill those gaps for you. So we'll talk about that and what you do later on towards the end of the interview. First of all, I want to look back at the last 20 years because someone who has been there in the trenches, actually physically doing marketing for MSPs for 20 years has an immense amount of value. We all know that if you've been there and you've done it, the chances of you figuring out what to do and how to do it just gets easier and easier and easier. So give us a brief sort of rundown of your career. How did you get into marketing MSPs in the first place, and what kind of MSPs have you worked at?
So that's a really good question. So when I left university, I managed to get my first marketing role in oil and gas, actually, and thought that might be a sector that was quite fun and exciting. Decided that it wasn't. And I relocated, and with that relocation came a new job. And that job happened to be born out of an engineering company, but turned itself into telecoms. And I joined there when it was very small, 30 odd people, a very tiny company. And I was given the best opportunity of my career, and I took it and I ran with it and did everything that I possibly could, and stayed there for 10 years. I loved it, and then decided that the time was right to kind of widen my experiences a little bit and join other MSPs. And I've been in MSPs sort of ever since, really, pretty much.
I think once you're in the channel, it's really hard to get out of the channel, isn't it? It's fun.
It's fun. You in, don't they?
Exactly. And there's so much change. You know, you can't ever get bored, let's be honest. It's not like being, I don't know, like a dentist or something where you're waiting 20 years for a new drill to come in or something like that. I couldn't imagine anything worse. So you started marketing MSPs around, we say around about 20 years ago, so around about 2005. And obviously the world was different in 2005. Never mind the technology, never mind marketing. What are the sort of the big shifts that you've seen that have made that either been the biggest challenges or have made the biggest difference to MSPs over those last couple of decades?
So it's an interesting question, that, actually, and I've been reflecting on that over the last couple of days, and I think there's positives and negatives of this. I think some of the biggest shifts that I've seen are 20 years ago, we were in analog marketing. So we had telemarketing, events, and direct mail, and pretty much that was all that we had, especially in small MSPs where budgets were limited. And I was in a small MSP. So 20 years ago, you had to be really creative with marketing, and you had to know where to spend the money to get the best bang for your buck. And I think I spent kind of quite a long time perfecting that. I think they call it guerrilla marketing now, but I ran some really, really high profile branding initiatives for Opal Telecom while I was there. It's now Talk Talk Business, and they were fun and exciting. And I guess in that day as well, what equally didn't happen, I guess, which is different to today, is that we weren't measured on things. You know, there weren't so many KPIs. There weren't, we didn't really look at return on investment in the way that it's looked at now. And the measure was, are we growing as a business? And the measure was, we actually doubled our turnover year on year, phenomenally quick. And it was hard to keep up. So I guess those are the two sort of different challenges. I think now we're in a much more digital world. We have been probably for the last 10 years or so, maybe slightly more, digital and social. And my sort of thought process, I guess, for the future, I know you haven't asked this question, is what are we going to do next? And are we about to change? And are we about to flip? And I actually think that the answer is yes to that. I think people have digital fatigue, and I think there's going to be changes in marketing ahead, but I don't think we know quite what they will be yet.
Well, let's go with that question, because you're right. That was going to be my next question, which is, if you've been doing something for 20 years and you've seen the evolution of that, what's next? So we are fully digital. And, I recommend to my MSP Marketing Edge members that they occasionally do some analog stuff, because analog stuff stands out. Like, we give them a printed newsletter every month, and I say, print 50, 100 copies, send that out to your hottest prospects, to your dream 100. If it's, I'm sure, Nicola, you understand the concept, but the concept of your hottest, smallest, small bunch of prospects. And the reason we do that is because 20 years ago, loads of printed newsletters landed indoors, and today no one does that. So it gives you huge standout ability. So let's look at that then. The next couple of years, you think there's going to be a flip. Is that going to be based around AI or something else?
I think AI is going to play a role. It's certainly going to play a role within SEO marketing anyway. And I don't know yet how that landscape is going to change. But, when people are searching on Google now, it presents the whole AI spiel before you even get to the number one. So fighting for that number one sort of has become even harder. And we don't really know how that landscape is going to evolve, I think. And you're right, in terms of that. So we talked a bit about digital fatigue, and I think people are open to face-to-face communications. They're open to that more personal touch. They're open to that different side of marketing that was perhaps from back in the day, and perhaps we just need to evolve from back in the day and bring it into today's kind of marketing. But I definitely think that there's going to be a change.
Yeah, well, you're preempting all of my questions, because having spent some time in the past with you, no, don't apologise, it's good. Spend some time in the future. Oh, and by the way, I should clarify, we don't pre-plan these interviews, so I never provide lists of questions or anything. These interviews are always just go with the flow. It's clearly Nicola and I are thinking the same way, which is really cool. So we've looked at the past, we've looked at the future. Let's talk about what's working now. So you have, as you say, as you said earlier, a few months ago, you came out of actually doing marketing for an MSP, and now you're working with a number of them. So obviously we have no idea, really, do we, what's going to happen? And you and I are, as marketers, are following trends, are reading and consuming and researching just as much as anyone else, because I think we're all just sort of finding our way into the future. But in terms of right now, so as this interview goes out, late summer 2025, what's working for MSPs now to generate leads and turn those leads into initial sales meetings?
That's a really tough question. And I think with the MSPs that I've been speaking to, I actually think that there's an area where, we could probably say that actually it's quite tough right now for MSPs, and certainly sort of marketing is equally quite tough. And I think there's challenges with who they're marketing to. Budgets are tightened. I think IT projects are being undertaken, but they're being selective about which projects they want to undertake and when. So I think that there's certainly a lot of challenges for an MSP. And of course, if you're selling sort of managed services, there's only really ever 3% in market, so to speak, that's able to buy. Most MSPs actually do say that they retain kind of like 95-97% of their customer base. So the market is sort of very small anyway, and they're equally being quite cautious about who they're engaging with and how. What's working with MSPs right now? I think they're still using sort of the more interruptive forms of marketing that there are, sort of, the telemarketing, the email side of marketing. I think the way that MSPs are and the way that marketing is measured, I think people want to try and see the return, and that's where people can see the return, and it's measurable. And you can send out 100 emails and you get one response, and you can figure out whether that's a channel that's worth investing in or not. I think what the smaller MSPs particular, and I totally get it, what they're perhaps not embracing so much is the brand side of things. So it's all very much tactically lead driven activities, but that's all what happens sort of, you've got your 3% that's in market, and you're doing a marketing campaign that lasts 3 months. What happens for the rest of the 9-month period? And that's where I think the strategic marketing really should come into play. You really probably need to be looking at the peer review sites, for example. A lot of the buyers, 70% of buyers, Gartner say, actually do their buying before they even arrive on a company's website. So unless you're sort of present in those areas, it's going to be very difficult for you. You're sort of battling uphill all of the time. And whilst the uphill battle, I think, the MSPs are doing okay at, you're going to become fatigued really quickly before you get to the top of that. And I think what we need to do is try and get MSPs to kind of turn themselves around a bit and look more into that bigger picture, the branding side of things, and things which are actually really quite difficult to measure, but that are so important in terms of turning a business from that sort of outbound interruptive marketing into that sort of inbound, hey, I've just had 10 leads land in my inbox, and I don't know where they've come from, sort of MSP, but actually it's around all of the periphery marketing activities that happen.
I agree. So there's a couple of really positive things that come out of that. The first is, as you said, like 97% of clients stay with their MSP. So it's tough to win a client, but when you win them, you keep them forever. They don't go anywhere until they go bust or they're acquired, or there's some catastrophe which separates that relationship. So hard to win, but easy to keep is the first positive. I think the other positive is, Nicola, is that everyone is in the same boat. And if you've got 20, 30, 40 competitors, direct competitors in your market, let alone the thousands of others you're in competition with, because any MSP can service any client anywhere, more or less, until they've got to get physically boots on the ground. Everyone's got the same problems and everyone's battling through it. And I'm sure you see this, that the MSPs who win are the ones that keep going and keep investing in marketing. And even if it's small amounts of money and small amounts of time, it's always better to do little bits of marketing regularly. And I mean like every weekday, to be doing something every weekday, than to do a campaign here and stop and do nothing for 6 months, and do something and stop and do something for a few months. Yeah. And it's just keeping going is such an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, like we say, that there's so many different channels now that are available to marketeers. And again, the challenge for marketing is kind of we kind of really need to be present in all of these channels, but we're sometimes very dictated by budgets. And it's about trying to figure out which of those channels are going to provide the better ROI for that MSP. And sometimes, and that's a learning curve. And there isn't kind of a marketing blueprint for that. Every organization is different, yet facing very similar challenges. And I think it's the role of marketing is to kind of go in and kind of figure out and navigate how we can create that niche for that MSP and start to get, tell the narrative and tell the story and build the brand on an ongoing basis, so that it's not just that, odd ad hoc campaign here and ad hoc campaign there, but it actually starts to build a narrative around that MSP and why that MSP is unique and why that MSP is credible and why somebody should actually choose that MSP as their provider.
Yeah, exactly that. And you get that momentum from doing that and keeping that going. Nicola, let's stop there. Thank you so much for your time. So you've come out of working for an MSP. You are now a fractional marketer, which let's put that in slightly different terms. Most MSPs listening to this or watching this on YouTube will have heard of the VCIO, Virtual Chief Information Officer. I would look at Nicola as a VCMO, a Virtual Chief Marketing Officer. Tell us briefly, what do you actually do to help MSPs? So are you helping with strategy? Are you helping with implementation? And then finally, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. It's a bit of both, actually. So it depends on the MSP and what they've sort of got existing at the moment. Some MSPs that I'm working with, they already have a marketing function of sorts, and that marketing function can be sort of part of the commercial team or part of the sales team. And perhaps it's sort of reached the limit of what the sales or commercial person knows about marketing, and they're wanting somebody to come in and help drive that strategy. Or it could be an MSP that kind of needs support and help and guidance in understanding actually what is their niche, what is their USP, what is their ICP, and how do we go about creating the messaging framework in order to be able to sell into them. And I can help along with those things as well. And very tactically, just some MSPs don't have any marketing at all. So equally, very happy to roll my sleeves up and get stuck into. The best way to get in touch with me is via my website. It's fractionalmarketeer.co.uk, or you can check me out on LinkedIn. You can search for Nicola Moss, and hopefully that will bring you to me, and love to connect and see how I can help.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.